Hello, viewers, and welcome to a Team VVV podcast, where this week we're going to be welcoming a new member to the team in terms of Ben Green, who'll be joining us today. Of course, I'm joined in this podcast by Kevin.
Hello.
And Ben.
Hi, guys.
Okay, Ben, so welcome to Team VVV. You're going to be sort of racing a lot more in the way of sim racing for us on the channel and showing us some of your skills and feedback in the weeks to come. But I think first, as a bit of an introduction to everybody, you're a real racing driver. You know, we talk about it. Murray always says those that can do, those that can't talk about it. I'm a good talker, but I wanted somebody involved who was a real racing driver as well. And so I thought in this podcast, we'd learn a bit about you and your racing understanding as well. So tell me, Ben, how did you get into racing? Where did it all start for you?
So it all started for me back in 2012, 2013. And so not really that long ago. And I started off high karting. So went to a local karting track, tried out some go-karts, and, you know, was actually, I was fairly slow to begin with. But we could see that I sort of had some potential. And every time I went back, I was learning a lot and improving quite quickly. And that's something I've always had as a kind of a trait. I always kind of pick things up and learn new things quite quickly. So although I may not start, you know, the quickest, I learn very quickly and build up my pace quite quickly in whatever I tend to do. And yeah, I've kind of, yes, I started in karts, worked up to owner driver karts where you own the kart, and eventually got into cars. And then this is my 4th year in car racing this year.
I mean, it seems very challenging in karts. I mean, for people who want to get into karts, I mean, when I first did karting, it was learn where you go flat and then learn how you get through the slow corners. For me, the slow corners were always a bit more challenging than the fast corners. I was flat through the fast sections, but it's just how you get on the power and your line through the corners and then understanding tire temperature. You've got that element, and then you've got your sort of initial sponsorship, haven't you? I mean, initially sort of you're going to be up against guys who obviously have more experience and have better equipment. How did that sort of transition work for you?
Well, for me, again, I just, you know, up until probably when I got into cars, I didn't understand much about vehicle dynamics and sort of temperatures and things like that. All I knew was, you know, how to drive. And it was very natural for me. I just sort of got in it, and I felt where you need to go quicker and where you could kind of need to back off the speed a bit. And obviously, you know, naturally, you know, most people can work that out for themselves. But with the sponsorship side of things, I had my first sponsor in pro karts, and that was in 2014, I think. And yeah, we took that and yeah, you used that to sort of fund the racing.
Now from there, you've moved up to Ginetta very quickly. How does the transition go from going from karting to a Ginetta, which is a much larger car, much larger courses? What's that transition? How did that work out?
It was a very uphill learning curve. My first year was in the Ginetta Junior Championship, which is arguably the most competitive junior series in Europe, if not further on that. You know, there are very few Ginetta, so there are very few junior championships in cars that can compete with the Ginettas. I mean, there was 10 race weekends, obviously 10 qualifying sessions in my year, and there was 10 different pole sitters. It's a phenomenal grid. There's 23 cars, all normally within a second from first to last. So it's very, very competitive, and all the guys in the top of that class have made it as drivers or are on the point of making it. And that I found it hard to get into it at the beginning. And you know, you learn, as I say, you learn things, and you practice, and practice makes perfect.
Now, your positions improved a lot. How did your, in terms of where you were qualifying and then you're moving you up very swiftly, talk us through those seasons in terms of how you progressed and how your results improved?
Well, I like to always say with the juniors, it was a very slow start for me. So I qualified, I think it was 24th out of 26th at Brands Hatch Indy for the first round. So I was like almost stone dead last. It was a long way off. You know, I was about a second, 1.2 off of pole, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is when the track's only sort of 4 or 5 corners. So I was a fair amount off, and I finished maybe 19th and 20th, I think, in the 2 races. And that was the first weekend of the year. The third weekend of the year, I finished 8th and 10th. So you can see there's, you know, big progression. And then around that first year, I sort of was anywhere between 8th and 15th on average.
That's a big improvement, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very quick improvement. And I kind of plateaued a bit through the year. Obviously, as I was learning different tracks, most of the time I was coming to the track for the first time on the race weekend, or maybe I would have had a day in the car at the track. But, you know, learning a big car track like that, you need more than just a single day, definitely.
Now, second year, how did that progress?
So most people normally stay in whatever championship they start in for 2 years, so they can learn the car again, and all the stuff they learned in the first year they can apply in the second year. For me, I started when I was quite old, relative to everyone else. So my age, I can only do juniors for 1 year rather than 2 years. So I went straight up to the Ginetta Super Cup, and that was again another big jump, 3.5 times the power of the junior car, big slick tires, aerodynamics as well. So I had it all up against me again, pretty much. More power, more speed, and tough competition again. National championship on the touring car package. So that was a tough year again, but I had a few podiums that year again, just proving that I'm still learning. And then obviously carried on to do that a year after.
I mean, that's quite a big step there as well. I mean, you say you had a few podiums, so you've gone from coming into a car you don't know the year before, tracks you don't know, to the second year, still a car you don't know, but you're getting podiums. That's a big step.
Yeah, exactly.
And so talk me through your career up until this year, and we'll talk about this year, this coming year a bit later. How did you progress after that?
Well, so that was 2016 that I just spoke about there with the first year in Super Cup. And then obviously I had the second year in Super Cup, which is 2017, which was last year. And obviously now this is the first time, pretty much the first time in my career of racing that I've had 2 years in the same car. So I've been able to apply that knowledge from the first year into the second year. And we had a very successful year. Most wins out of all drivers, 7 wins, a lap record, podiums. We had a very successful year, second in a championship. And I think without some reliability issues, I really could have been in it for the title. But that's not the way it goes sometimes.
No, that's motorsport for you. But still, yeah. I think in just 2 years, sort of from last to first. I mean, that's an amazing transition. I know it's a slight change in category there, but at the same time, that really shows how quick you picked up on that. I saw a couple of your cars last year, and you had that sort of. It was an LMP car, was it? Or that you went to Dubai? Tell me about that experience.
So that was something we did in the winter. So we managed to raise some additional sponsorship for this certain rounds, so we could go and compete in some faster cars. And again, that just speeds up the learning process. So it's like if you jump up to a much quicker car, when you come back to the normal car you race, everything seems slower, so you can think quicker, and it's all a lot easier to drive. So I kind of applied that. I used that in karting. That's how I progressed so quickly in karting. I did it I kind of applied that knowledge to the cars as well. And obviously the LMP car I drove was an LMP3 with a bit more power and a bit bigger wings. And I drove that at Estoril, and that was phenomenally hard. Very difficult circuit, very difficult car to drive. That had 500 horsepower and weighed the same as a Ginetta Junior. So,
oh wow,
yeah, very, very quick car, very, very quick car. I mean, we was doing 170 plus down the start finish straight, and in the rain on slicks, it was very difficult.
Goodness me,
so challenging. I mean, one of the things is I actually managed to sit in that car. I'll point out with no seat in it.
Yeah,
we had to take the seat out to get me in, but I think that funny when you play games like Project Cars, Project Cars 2, you're looking around the cockpit and you're saying, wow, I can barely see out of these LMP cars because, it's just so confined in there. You get in the real car and it is very confined. I mean, you've got those wheel arches practically in your way. What's it like in terms of visibility?
It's horrendous. It's absolutely terrible.
Wow.
I mean, if you I used Project Cars 2 with the Oculus Rift a lot to practice for that. And it was, I actually think Project Cars 2 was out. Project Cars 1 was out, though, and I used that a bit. And that G57 on Project Cars 2, though, is very, very similar to the real-life one. And it's probably one of the most similar cars I've found because it's just very accurate. Everything looks about the right size and about the right shape, and it's all the right perspective in terms of the distance from where the driver sits. And that's very important when you're obviously trying to make a real life car into a game. So Project Cars 2 done a very good job with making that car in the game. I've always been a great believer in that. And it feels very similar as well. Obviously being mid-engined or rear-engined like a single-seater, it has that feel in the game. And it's a very distinct feeling. It's completely different to a GT, completely
different. Well, let's talk a little bit about the sort of physical elements of that kind of driving. I mean, it must be absolutely exhausting because I know it's almost like what people don't realize when you're in a very fast car, you feel a compression on your body, but even your eyes, it affects your vision as well sometimes, especially the braking, accelerating constantly. That's exhausting, disorientating in some respects. It's so physical. How do you find the physical aspects of driving cars like that?
It's very funny, actually. I drove that LMP3 car, and it gave me a massive kick to really improve my fitness because I could, I could do the 20-minute races in a Ginetta G55, no issue. I could do that. Maybe if it was a half an hour, 40-minute race, I'd have struggled, but I'd have still finished it. But I went out to Estoril thinking, oh yeah, I've driven the car once at Donington. Yeah, it felt good. Did 10 laps in it. It was great. And got out there. I did a 2-hour stint. And the last half an hour of it, my head was resting against the side of the car around all the right-hand corners because I couldn't hold my neck up. It was that tiring. It was, I mean, the final corner at Estoril, I think we were exiting it about 120 miles an hour, and it's flat out the whole way around. So it's about, good 2 or 3G the whole way around the corner for a good probably 5-10 seconds. So it's a long way around.
That's incredible, isn't it?
That is incredible. But, there's something about when you go to circuits like that, they have so much history about them.
Very old.
Exactly. Yeah. I would think of Senna and Mansell and Prost and, some of the action that's gone on some of these circuits. I mean, they've altered a couple of corners here and there, but fundamentally, a lot of it's still very similar. And it's a shame they don't visit some of these circuits now.
Yeah, I just wondered, Ben, if you have any sort of superstitions, any sort of things you do before a race for good luck.
Yeah, you actually get a lot of these questions. It's quite common. People always ask, and it's different for every person. Every driver will have the things they do before a race, whether it's for good luck, whether it's for preparation, and be that physical or mental. Everyone will choose to do what they want to do. It's all personal preference. I don't have any superstitions. I think it's a negative to have that because it's a distraction. Say your superstition goes bad, or you step on a crack one day. You're now going to have a bad day because it's in your head. You're thinking about, steps on that crack car, I'm going to have a bad day today. You're instantly in a negative frame of mind. So you've got to be very careful that you don't do that to yourself as a sports person. And I try to limit that as much as I can. And with preparation-wise before a race, I have sort of a routine that I'll do if I've got a good amount of time. And if it gets called on me suddenly, I've got to do a driver swap and I'm out in the car in 5 minutes. And I've got a very quick preparation I can do just to warm up physically. Get my head in the game kind of thing and get ready.
Do you have a way in which you keep yourself calm? I mean, some of these races, you're bound to be very nervous on the grid, sort of the jitter, if you like, in terms of, do you sort of prepare in terms of putting your mind in a certain place and staying calm for those moments? Do you have a sort of rhythm that you follow?
Yeah, sort of. That's probably one of the most important things that I focused on last year. I knew last year I had the skill, I had the pace, but really it was going to be, could I hold my head when other people couldn't? And I used a lot of different techniques for that. The main one was it was kind of like a meditation. And that's not, like some, I don't know, mystical person floating, holding his hands out like he's doing karate or something. It's like, it's meditation. It's a very sort of calm, relaxed state of mind, and you're very focused, and you don't really think much. You just sort of do things, and you try not to focus on doing everything. It's very difficult to explain, but
it sort of gives you clarity of mind, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're not thinking about your movements, and it's like kind of a lot of people talk about getting in the flow when they're driving.
Yeah,
and that is, I feel like I achieve that through meditation. So that's how I started to do it. Definitely.
I always say it's to people when they're under pressure, I say, try not to beat yourself, and you've just got to have faith in your own ability for your own capability of lap times, and just have faith in yourself, not beat yourself. There's nothing like overdriving and making silly mistakes because you're not thinking straight, or your mind isn't where it should be. And your mind should always be on exactly what's at hand in front of you and not wander. So that's a very key thing about concentration. Away from real motorsports for a second, let's talk about the racing games now. Tell me about some of obviously you used quite a few games in terms of your preparation, but where did your racing gaming start?
Cool. Where did it start? A long time ago, back on Forza Motorsport 3, Forza Motorsport 4.
Yeah.
That's when I really first found my love for actually racing. And that was before I even started karting. So that was probably where the whole sort of racing started for me, which is quite ironic, obviously, because it's a sim game. But in terms of what I use currently, I use Assetto Corsa quite a lot. That's kind of where I train, iZone. They use a simulator there. And that's the game they use to run. So I've got a lot of models off of that we use to practice. I also use Project Cars 2, as there's such a vast quantity of different cars, different tracks as well. and it really allows you to prepare for anywhere in the world, really, which is quite useful.
Kevin, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going back to the racing. I mean, normally I find when I race on a sim, sometimes I have this sort of spacing out, and then when I sort of regain sort of consciousness, if you like, I realise I put in my best laps. Does that ever happen to you while racing? You sort of zone out or you space out, and you end up, putting in some incredible lap times.
Yeah, very often. I mean, that's probably when you put in your best times because, as I say before, you're not thinking about what you're doing and you're just driving. And the mind processes information so much quicker when it does that because it doesn't go through the part of the mind where it thinks and processes and it questions things. It just does it.
Like instinctively.
Instinctively. Yeah, it's such a quicker process actually physically through the mind. You know, we're talking microseconds here, but it is such a quicker process that your brain can react so much faster and so much more accurately to what it's perceiving in front of it. And that's when you set the fastest times. I mean, the last qualifying session at last year in the Genetta Super Cup, I went out and I had no idea what times we were looking for. You know, normally you go out there, you go, right, okay, I reckon pole's going to be, I don't know, a 37.2, or so you try to get near that. You think, oh, if I'm near that, I'm on it. That's kind of how things go normally. But for this weekend, it rained. It's last weekend of the year. It rained on Friday. All through Friday practice, it was wet. So we went out on Saturday morning. First session in the morning, 9:30, bone dry, and new tyres, and it's last quali of the year. And I was like, right, okay, I'm just going to drive. I have no idea what time I'm looking for, and I don't even remember looking at the times on the dash when I was driving. And I broke the lap record 2 or 3 times in a row. Didn't even blink. I didn't even think about it. And that was when I was driving probably at my best all last year because I just drove completely naturally.
You didn't handicap yourself psychologically, isn't it? You just sort of kept your mind clear and got on with business. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a bit about some of the racing games and how sims now and how they've sort of influenced your driving. Which ones were you saying you play? You play Assetto Corsa, Project Cars 2, and iRacing. Would you say they're the 3?
iRacing 2 as well. Yeah, they're the 3 ones I use the most, definitely.
Talk to me about those then, how you would use each of those and for what circumstance.
So Assetto Corsa, I do the bulk of my preparation on. So obviously I'm at Alton Park next weekend in the M4 GT4. So we've got a model of the car that I use on Assetto Corsa that we've made and I've designed with the guys at iZone and APSM that feels like an M4 GT4. So I use that to prepare on Assetto Corsa and obviously driving that around Alton Park. And I think Project Cars 2 I haven't used so much this season, pre-season, but I definitely used it to prepare for Estoril because obviously Assetto Corsa doesn't have Estoril on it. And I used it for, I'm not even sure Project Cars 2 has Estoril, but I used it for many different tracks that I wouldn't have been able to use on Assetto Corsa. I do remember that distinctively.
So it's fair to say Assetto Corsa is your sim of choice.
For the moment, yeah, right now. Yeah. For my preparation for my racing, definitely.
Do you play online, Ben?
Well, that's the thing is I don't do online on Assetto Corsa. I do on iRacing though because I find that iRacing it's a fantastic game for handling. It's a very good game in terms of the physics on it, and it's very competitive. You know, it's probably the most competitive sim game that I know. There's always people that are a lot quicker than me because they devote a lot more time to it, and I find that very interesting. And I always have to dig deep to really try and beat him. Then often I dig too deep, so it's a good practice to try and balance the mental.
Do you get as frustrated as the rest of us when like someone crashes into you, or do you keep your cool online, or would you be more inclined to keep your cool in the real world?
Probably more than most people. I get pretty frustrated on Sims.
Yeah, don't we all?
It's not easy, when you think, oh, I can get there, and then you're trying to go as fast as you can, and then some guy just cruises past you. You're like,
yeah. So it's definitely it's a different approach, isn't there, to online racing compared to the real world? Like you say, you really have to dig deep to sort of compete with these guys because. I guess because if you went against these guys on a track, no doubt you would be quicker. But we're not quite there with simulations yet in terms of comparing directly to the real world thing. But so there is a sort of adjustment, isn't there?
Well, I think I treat sim driving the same as real life, and I think most people should, because really you're applying the same skills, you're applying the same sort of processes in your mind and how you do it. So I think you should treat it almost exactly the same. And you just got to remember that the guys you race against on the sims that are quicker, all they've done is they've prepared more. So to beat them, I would just prepare more. I would just do more preparation, and that's how I would do it, and that works. You know, suddenly you think, oh, I'm 2 seconds off quickest session on iRacing on Porsches at Monza, and then you go and practice, and you practice, and you practice, and then suddenly you're only 1.5 off or 1.2 off. You know, you find that time because you know they've still got the same car as you. They've probably got a very similar setup to you. You know, there's only so much they can do in the car. You know, it's not like they've got an extra load of power, which in real life they can do. So in sim games are very useful because everyone's on the same playing field, and all it is it's time, it's devotion to it. So,
I mean, the one thing that you don't get from a sim, and I find in iRacing sometimes, is the lack of tire grip. The tire can break away, and you just slide along sometimes. I don't feel that sometimes you would. It depends on the car you're driving very much, though. And I'm going back a bit, some of my experiences there. I think also it's learning the nuances of the course. You know, if you're going through one corner in the wrong gear, it doesn't matter how quick you are. You've really got to know exactly where the optimum times are to change gear, where to brake, the correct line through every corner. And that's where the practice for those guys, I mean, they literally perfect those races. And it's amazing to see on iRacing. It's very competitive, but iRacing does give you, I find, that nervous feeling of being in a real race. I've mentioned it before several times, but when you see that countdown clock and you're like, right, I've got a race starting now. This is it. This is important. Yeah. You feel that genuine competitive racing excitement from iRacing, and because of course you've got to be careful. You don't want contact, anything like that. Exactly. You know, it's nothing like that. So actually, tell me about a couple of your sort of best races on iRacing. Do you have any standout experiences on there?
Well, funny you mention it. A standout experience I've got is with a fellow driver, a friend of mine. We did a Bathurst 12-hour race in GT3.
Oh wow!
Just the two of us. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So there was something like 50 cars on the grid, and it was, I can't remember if it was all day or all night, but it was yeah, that was pretty cool.
That is heavy. Yeah, it's a lot of driving between you and one day.
Hour on, and then the hour off was spent watching and spotting and working out fuel and working out when to hit. Yeah,
that's commitment right there.
12 hours on a sim, pretty much.
Wow, my goodness me. But I mean, it shows the level of dedication you need on iRacing. I mean, that's one of the reasons when people said to me, oh, Alan, we'd like to see you doing iRacing. And I went on iRacing a few years ago and actually won my second race and was doing quite well in what I was doing. But I just realized, you know, I don't have the time for this. And I don't want to.
That's often the issue, it's the time.
Yeah, I don't want to come on to iRacing, constantly lose to people I'm better than just because I haven't had the time to practice. Because we cover so many different types of racing game, it's quite challenging. So yeah, iRacing obviously very competitive online. I mean, Assetto Corsa, is that, you know, I suppose it's interesting from our perspective, isn't it? In terms of, like you say, in terms of physics, Assetto Corsa is definitely the game to beat in terms of sort of tactile sort of physics.
That's what I feel, definitely. I think most of the car models and the tire models are quite accurate. The way that the car breaks away, and also the setup has the right effect on it. So if you change the bar, if you change pressures, you change ride height, it does the right things to the car. It doesn't, you know, give you adverse effects that you're not expecting.
That's right. It feels intuitive, doesn't it? It feels like the real thing.
Yeah, it feels like it makes sense. Again, linking back to iRacing, I think Assetto is the closest you get to iRacing because iRacing has all the setup on it, and the setup in iRacing makes a very, very distinct difference each time you change a bit of setup in iRacing. And then Assetto Corsa is very, very similar to that.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your rig for a second. You've got quite an impressive rig for your testing. Tell me a bit about it.
Yeah, so it's a funny story about my sim setup. So obviously I was racing last 2 years in the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup, and we owned the car, we owned the G55, and I had a big crash at the start of last year, first round, Brands Hatch, and wrote the car off basically, big crash, and the chassis was bent. It wasn't extremely bent, it wasn't, you know, ridiculous, but it was enough that we were going to lose performance, so we had to change it. So it was an insurance claim, got a new chassis, and the insurers didn't want the chassis back, the old one that was broken, because there's no value to it really. So we thought, well, we've got this chassis sitting here, why don't we use it for the sim? So we put all of my steering wheel pedals and screens and computer into the sim, and obviously the chassis still had the bodywork around it of the general shell of the car. So yeah, we've pretty much got the majority of a G55 sitting in my front room.
Amazing. And we'll hopefully, I mean, we'll have some pictures showing this as well, showing your simulator setup. It really is, I guess, it sort of gives you that homely feeling, home from home, being in the car.
It is nice, especially since we sold the car. So
Yeah.
I've still got it here with me.
Still got it. I mean, it's something to keep, and yeah, I guess it does give you that sort of racing feel. It's just very unique, isn't it, compared to a lot of cockpits that are out there? You can have correctly positioned wheel and pedals to an extent.
Yeah, and also we use the racing seat, which is from the car, which is that's quite important because, you know, if you haven't got a seat that's the right angle, it can feel very strange. So yeah, all the pedals and steering wheel in the right place, and that is pretty cool.
That's the story of my life, by the way. When you're a giant like me, no pedals and wheels are set up correctly at all. I mean, half the videos I do at events, people don't realize that, you know, my elbows are like pushed up against me while I'm driving these things. It really is the worst of the Gran Turismo pods. They really are, and just they don't work for me at all. I just, again, I cut my blood supply off to my legs every time. Kevin, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you go to the arcade, you might be lucky enough to sort of bump into a machine that has half a car, or, you know, something like that. So it's almost like having a sort of that experience in your own home. It must be amazing.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's very cool. It's very relatable to the real car because it is one, and you feel like you are sitting in an actual car with all the pedals and the steering wheel in the right place, and obviously the seat is the same seat, so it feels very realistic. Yeah, definitely. It was a really useful tool last year, especially when I was doing Genettas.
So moving on then, looking forward to the future. Ben, you're going to be producing some videos for us. What can we look forward to you coming up on the channel?
So I'm hoping to bring you some sort of different content to what you've got at the moment. Loosely, you know, the same kind of things, but just a different kind of take on it. Obviously, where I race at the moment, I race normally. I probably have a different view to you guys, so I can kind of compare back to real life and say where the sim is similar to real life and where it's different. And I think that'll give you kind of a unique viewpoint on the channel. And obviously, you can talk about a lot of different games and show you some of my perspective when I'm racing, and through some pretty cool videos like visor cams and general onboards of the race weekends.
That'll be great. I really look forward to that. And I think something else is you're also a racing teacher, aren't you? You teach people how to drive racing cars, or tell me a bit about that side of things.
Yeah, so I instruct as well.
That's how I
keep. That's how I do my work. So I instruct at Brands Hatch. I've done bits at Donington. I do a lot of Bedford, Palmer Sport. I'm aiming to do things at Silverstone this year, and generally a lot of the sort of southern circuits. So yeah, it's basically just coaching people how to drive faster around the track, and I really enjoy it. It's good fun, and obviously when you're sitting next to someone, you're pushing them, telling them how fast they can go. You're constantly assessing things yourself, and it's almost like you're in the driving seat.
Would you say the key to being fast is being smooth with all your inputs?
I mean, everyone's got different takes. Everyone's got different personalities, and that sort of distinguishes how they drive as well. There isn't sort of one key way of being quick, but obviously, if you're smoother than others, it does help because you're not going to throw the car around too much and unsettle it. But then some people, depending on what car it is, throwing the car around really helps. So, for example, with Junior, you do need to throw that around a bit.
Yes,
you need to get that car sliding and get on the power really early for every corner. Because it's got very little power. So it's different driving styles suit different people. I feel like I suit the GTs. I've got quite a smooth driving style. Obviously, they're very big tyres, very big and heavy cars. So you need to be smooth with them. If you're chucking them around, they're not going to like it. So yeah, you've got to
look after the tyres, haven't you? In terms of traction.
Yes,
that must
definitely.
be a big element there. So I guess really, I mean, obviously the instructor. I think if anyone out there, we'll have to leave the details in the description and on the website. We'll show you guys the link on how you can get involved and have Ben teaching you some racing techniques. Ben, I guess to finish off today, what's next for you now in terms of racing? Where are we going to see you?
So the next weekend we'll be racing will be the end of April, and we'll be at Rockingham for the second round of British GT. And again, I'll be in the M4 of Century Motorsport, and again, hoping to be pushing up the front and getting some podiums.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Ben. Wishing you all the best in terms of your racing. For viewers, links obviously to your racing school will be in the description of the video, but also you'll see that on the website in more detail. And we look forward to not only your real racing, but your racing gaming videos and giving us another slant, another perspective on our racing coverage across the board, and especially when looking at detailed physics and stuff like that. But that's it from us for now. Ben, thanks for your time. Big thanks to Kevin, and there'll be more from us very soon.